Welcome Australopithecai. Today is Sunday. I hope you're having a good weekend, and I am having one too. Why? Because finally, after what it felt like a whole week, we can talk about something else other than balance tuning, other than specs and numbers getting changed, because finally today we have a few more changes to Dragonflight that won't really impact specs and numbers and whatnot, but parts of the game. The parts of the game getting changed for today are the Great Vault, the Mythic Plus affix of Dragonflight, as well as something quite interesting about our weapons in Dragonflight. So let's start with the first change, because this one is going to touch the widest part of the player base, because it's the one to the Great Vault. The change to the Great Vault is very simple. You have a nice pat on the back, a nice little tiny help to PvP players. Now PvP players will require 500 less honor to unlock the third reward from the Great Vault, which is, you know, okay. It's not that bad, it's not that great either. It's a nice help, nothing more. Where the help starts getting a little bit bigger is in the raid. The raid goes from 2, 5, 8 bosses required to unlock the Great Vault rewards into 2, 4, and 6. So it's gonna be 1 less boss for the second reward and 2 less bosses for the third reward. Now this might make sense to many of you, and in fact, after I sent these numbers to my team of mathematicians, they came back to me about a week later and managed to figure out that in Shadowlands, when the Great Vault became a thing, Castonatria had 10 bosses, Sanctum of Domination had 10 bosses, and Sepulchre of the First Ones had 11 bosses. So defeating 2, 5, and 8 left raid guilds and raid rosters plenty of room to put in and then bench and then put in again and keep rotating the players without risking or without having to be forced to make players miss out on Great Vault rewards. However, in Dragonflight there is a problem. In Dragonflight, Vault of the Incarnates, the first raid of Dragonflight, only has 8 bosses. So if you kept the Great Vault at 2, 5, and 8, a player to get 3 rewards from the raid would have to be in for every single boss kill, which is a problem, of course. If you are part of a roster of, say, 25 people and you're only raiding with 20, it means that every boss you have at least 5 people out, which makes it very difficult in the end to make everyone have 3 rewards from the Great Vault. In fact, it's impossible. So, because the bosses are only 8 in the first raid of Dragonflight, the Great Vault gets scaled down to 2, 4, and 6. Now it's gonna make it much easier, and it's going to allow room to raid rosters and the groups to be able to rotate players around without having to miss out on the third option from the Great Vault. This has, however, of course, caused complaints, because we talked about the PvP one getting a nice little change, the raid one getting a much better change, but there is nothing for Mythic Plus. Mythic Plus's rewards are still at 1, 4, and 8 Mythic Plus keys completed. And some players are not seeing this too positively, especially given the news about Mythic Plus in Dragonflight. As you know, watching my videos, you should have learned that in Dragonflight, Blizzard is raising quite significantly the rewards that you can get from Mythic Plus. However, with that also comes higher difficulty, which means now the better and best rewards are no longer stopping at plus 15, they are increasing at plus 18 and then increasing even more at plus 20. So now, to get your weekly top reward from Mythic Plus, you no longer have to clear plus 15 keys. In Dragonflight, you have to clear plus 20 keys. So you have to clear the same amount of keys of Shadowlands for the same rewards in the Great Vault, but now the keys are harder, the keys are increased in difficulty. That was the main part, the main point of complaint for the Mythic Plus players. Remember, by the way, that Mythic Plus players can simply clear 8 keys at plus 20 to get their top reward, but raiders have to defeat 6 bosses in Mythic to start getting their 3 rewards. Now, how many guilds and how long will they have to wait before they get to 6 Mythic boss kills? It could be, depending on the balance of the raid, it could take months for the majority of the raid player base to get to defeat 6 bosses in Mythic. You know, even just looking at Sepulchre, where the 6th boss wasn't even remotely close to being one of the end bosses, because you had 11 bosses in Sepulchre, not 8. like Vault of the Incarnates in Dragonflight. The 6th boss in the Order guilds usually went with in Shadowlands was Lihuvim, and it took guilds outside of the top 300 over a month to get to kill Lihuvim. So just remember that as you complain that you will need 8 keys at plus 20 to get your rewards in Mythic Plus, 99+% of the raiding player base won't even have a third option from the Great Vault in Mythic difficulty for weeks, if not months, the lower they are in ranking. Now the second change, the second interesting change after the one to the Great Vault is again back to Mythic Plus, because the change is to the Seasonal Affix Thundering. Thundering made its debut last week in the first testing of Mythic Plus, and it was a nightmare. It was very poorly received. So Blizzard adjusted this behavior. Now only 4 orbs are going to spawn on players' heads. There are going to be 2 orbs of one type, the Mark of Lightning, and then 2 orbs of a different type, the Mark of Wind. At the moment, one is bright white and the other one is more bluish with some lightning around, and you have to pair with the opposite mark to clear the debuff, and it's only happening to 4 players, meaning that one guy will never have to pair with someone else. And the targeting is made so that the 3 DPS will always get the mark, and the tank and healer will get it 50% of the time. So either it's gonna go to the tank and leave the healer alone, or go to the healer and leave the tank alone. Now Blizzard did go back on their word. They did point out when they announced this that they were not going to give us a buff. They were not going to give us a benefit, a so-called kiss curse that we have gotten throughout the entirety of Shadowlands. Prideful, Tormented, Encrypted all gave you some pretty big buffs throughout the Mythic Plus key when you were doing the affix, but they went back on their word because now they also added a buff. When you get these orbs on top of your head that you need to clear, for 15 seconds, for the duration of the orb, you will be doing 15% more damage and you will be doing 15% more healing. Now, while it might certainly be cool, this is definitely opening up some room for some massive griefing in pugs, because what's gonna happen is players will be trying to limit test and clear the debuff, clear the orb at the last possible second because they want to keep the 15% damage buff, fuck up and end up getting stunned, take the dot and die, because they wanted to limit test themselves and try to get to clear the debuff as late as possible. So I don't even like this reworked version of the original. Just the idea of having all of the swirlies on the ground, having to dodge them, plus then having to group with someone else to clear the debuff, and then also the pressure of having a buff on you, but at the same time you want to clear the buff, otherwise you're gonna get stunned if you don't. You know, I think they can do better. They have more time to polish this, they have more time to find something more interesting than this affix before Dragonflight launches, so I'm gonna be waiting to see the further changes to this affix. Lastly, the last change for today, as I said, it was something quite cool for your weapons, because as you can see here, something that we did not think technology could achieve yet. It's incredible. We actually don't know how precisely the Blizzard coders were able to achieve this, but as you can see here, it is now possible in Dragonflight to apply weapon illusions to artifact appearances. All of the different types of weapon illusions you have gathered for years and years and years, from Light of the Earth Warden to Mongoose Bite to Sinful Wrath gotten from Shadowlands and whatnot, all of these things are now applicable to your artifact appearances. Now this looked too good to be true, and many players were just defeatist from the start and assumed this was simply a bug, something that was going to be fixed very soon. Now, as it is right now, early morning on Sunday, at the very least on the leveling server of the beta, no word from Blizzard has gone out about this one being a bug and getting fixed. However, I'm not putting my hopes too high because there was no announcement about this, nothing in the patch notes about the hot fixes coming in, so I wouldn't put my hopes up too much about this one going through, even though, you know, it's not really going to hurt anyone if it stayed in the game, so I'm not sure exactly why not. It couldn't be in there. I don't know. If it won't, I'm assuming we're gonna hear from Blizzard quite soon as this one gets patched. For now, however, this was all for Sunday. I'm going to reserve, likely for tomorrow, the video about the pre-patch event and what's gonna happen in the pre-patch event and the loot from the pre-patch event, which will be used by me at least, for leveling a couple of alts in Dragonflight. If it's too low item level, if it's good enough, we will see exactly what you're gonna get from the pre-patch event. For now, we are leaving each other on this Sunday. Thank you guys, of course, for watching the video, and as usual, the first thanks go to my Patreon supporters that are helping me and supporting me in continuing to produce content for WoW, for everyone of you who wants to watch, and I'm hoping enjoy the content I put out almost every day. You can, of course, support in other ways. You don't necessarily have to spend money, mind you. You can like and comment down below on this video, as well as subscribing to the channel as well. This is also going to go and help myself and this channel without having to be a pay pig and fork out money for me, so that's perfectly fine as well. Lastly, for more parasocial relationships, imaginary friends, and simping behaviors, you can follow me on Twitter, as well as subscribing to my Patreon, which will also give you access to my Discord server. Now, with this out of the way, we are leaving. Thank you guys again for watching. See you guys soon, and in the meantime, I don't know, man. If I had to be honest, I probably have a 17% hope on the artifact weapons working with the weapon illusions in Dragonflight. I have not won whenever I believed too much in good things happening recently, so I'm not falling for it.